This is PressTV. Hello, I'm Saeed Purza. We're continuing our coverage of the U.S.-backed Israeli naked aggression against Iran for the now 7 days. The exchange of fire between the Israeli regime and Iran continues, with missiles from the Islamic Republic penetrating the skies around the Zionist entity. Calls for diplomacy, for a ceasefire, and a reining back of hostilities from global leaders, including from the United Nations. Well, let's talk about that with Amina Taylor, Press TV's producer and correspondent, who has hopped into the studio to help us keep the ball rolling. And via Zoom, all the way from the States, Caleb Maupin from an unspecified location inside the U.S. He's an analyst with the Center for Political Innovation and author of, among other titles, Where is America Going? And Caleb, thank you for being with us. Let me start with that same title. As far as this war of aggression, where do you think America is going?
Well, it's going in the opposite direction of where the overwhelming majority of people in this country want it to be going. Poll after poll has shown the American public does not want more involvement in foreign wars. Donald Trump was elected on a platform of ending involvement in foreign wars. His director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, joined his campaign because she said she wanted to be in a position to stop a new world war, and she herself testified before Congress back in March that Iran was not developing a nuclear weapon. Rumors are now circulating that Tulsi Gabbard, Trump's intelligence director, may even resign as a result of the reckless threats and deranged activities we've been seeing out of the White House recently. The American people don't want this war. Democrats, Republicans, red states, blue states, the American people do not approve of how dangerously the White House is acting about possibly getting us into a conflict and having, young men from Iowa and Texas and Kansas and New York and California come home in body bags in the defense of a foreign country, Israel, that is widely condemned by the world for its atrocities. It has no benefit for the American people. We have absolutely nothing to gain from coming to Israel's aid, and aid to Israel must end. And the will of the American people, that is at this point being represented in Congress mainly by MAGA Republicans, such as Thomas Massie and Marjorie Taylor Greene, the will of the American people is to stay out of this and not escalate any further. The bluster coming out of the White House is insane, and it's crazy because we have our leader Donald Trump saying the exact opposite of what he campaigned on, threatening, making outrageous demands, and then when Iran's supreme leader responds, they're portraying him as being aggressive. Well, what is he supposed to say? What is the leader of a sovereign country that is under attack by a noted war criminal, Israel, supposed to do under these circumstances? He's supposed to say, oh, okay, we surrender. Oh, okay, we back down. Of course he's not going to say that. He's going to stand up for the very principles upon which the Islamic Republic was founded, which include resistance to Israel, resistance to Zionism, and solidarity with the Palestinian people. From the moment the Islamic Republic came into existence, there was solidarity with the Palestinians, opposition to Israel. Imam Khomeini called for the Day of Al-Quds. He spoke about how eventually Al-Quds would be retaken by the Muslim people of the world and Zionism would be defeated. The supreme leader has no choice but to stand firm in his principles. And if Donald Trump thinks that this kind of insane bluster and outrageous demand for unconditional surrender is going to lead to a peaceful resolution of this conflict, he's just out of his mind. This kind of bluster might work in a real estate deal. This is not how one should run international relations.
Very good point. And as early as today, the deputy foreign minister of Iran reminded the world that nuclear weapons do not have a place in Iran's defense doctrine. Thanks for that, Caleb. Caleb, I want to get you to react to the following, which is the U.S. officially removing Colonel Nathan McCormick from his position at the Joint Chiefs of Staff for posts calling Israel a death cult and saying America is acting as Israel's proxy. He's not the only person to do it. Academics have done it. We have mentioned Professor Jeffrey Sachs numerous times, who has been saying over and over again that the American foreign policy has been run by the Israelis for the good part of now 30 years.
Well, that's important because it points to what is being widely acknowledged right now, is that there is opposition to U.S. involvement in Israel's violent attacks against Iran from within the Pentagon itself. And this individual who's been forced out was giving voice to what I'm sure many other officers and leaders of the U.S. military are saying themselves, not publicly on social media, but behind closed doors. There is a widespread understanding that this foreign policy of backing Israel and its atrocities is increasing the amount of terrorism in the world. It's increasing hatred for the United States. Many of the people in the military signed up because they wanted to make sure that their family members didn't die in something like the 9/11 attacks. They wanted to keep their country safe. They loved their community. They loved their country. And they didn't sign up to defend Israel. And they did not sign up to make sure that Israel could continue bombing and destroying children, in Gaza. That's not what they signed up to do. And we will recall a similar situation about a decade ago, a little over a decade ago, 2013, Barack Obama was talking about bombing Syria. And there was a kind of social media uprising from rank and file soldiers who obscured their faces and released photos saying that they did not want to be involved in that. And that had a big impact in making President Barack Obama reach a deal with the Syrian government to give up its chemical weapons and backing away from actually bombing Syria in 2013. And opposition to the war is widespread. Opposition to foreign involvement is actually larger among U.S. military personnel than among the general public. If you looked at when Ron Paul, the congressman from Texas, who ran on a non-interventionist platform for president, he got more donations from the military than any other candidate received. And you have a lot of voices within the U.S. military that are opposed to this involvement. And, I know people in the military, and books about the role of the Israel lobby, books about the kind of conspiracy and who might really have the power. Those get passed around military barracks in the Navy and the U.S. Marine Corps like crazy because they are the ones that actually have to go and fight these wars, and they want to know what they're fighting for. And I must say that many of the loudest voices calling for the USA to jump into this conflict and spark World War III, essentially, in defense of Israel, are voices that speak in the name of Christianity. However, there are millions and millions of Americans who can read the Bible for themselves and know that Jesus Christ told his followers to love their enemies. Jesus Christ said that one should care for the least among us and have compassion, and that jumping into a conflict to aid a murderous, bullying power like Israel is certainly not something one should be doing in the name of the Bible and of Christianity. And there are many voices on the American right, like Candace Owens and others, that can see through that have called that out, and that a lot of the powerful evangelical Christian institutions in the United States are completely captured by Israel. But many Americans can read the Bible for themselves, can see Israel's atrocities, and don't buy the arguments that they're hearing from the pulpit, that to be a good Christian, one must support the murderous crimes of Israel. That is not something that many Christians accept, even if they're hearing that from the pulpit. So U.S. society is very, very divided, but mainstream media doesn't reflect public opinion. I must say, as somebody whose history, I come out of the U.S. left, that's my background, I am very disappointed in many of the so-called leftist voices. Thank goodness for Thomas Massey, the U.S. congressman from Kentucky who's put forward opposition to this war. Thank goodness for Marjorie Taylor Greene, the member of U.S. Congress from Georgia who's a MAGA Republican. But Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and the so-called socialists, the Democratic Socialists of America and the Democratic Party, they were completely late to the game. And even today we have Bernie Sanders saying it would be okay. It's okay for Israel to attack Iran if that's what Israel wants. We just shouldn't get involved. That's the anti-war stance he's finally taken after days of saying nothing. I mean, it's absolutely tragic to see that, socialism and leftism as a movement in America has become almost completely co-opted. We're seeing barely any anti-war opposition from leftist voices in Congress. It's almost exclusively coming from the MAGA and the Republican crowd. And that says a lot about how U.S. discourse is changing, that leftism in America has become the voice of powerful institutions institutions that have to get checks from Zionist foundations, whereas the MAGA movement, even though the people running it, and Trump himself seems to be quite loyal to Israel, rank and file MAGA people say America first does not mean Israel first. That's what your average MAGA person believes. And if you read the comments of any conservative website or conservative blog, you can see a lot of awareness about the disproportionate amount of power the Israel lobby has. But when it gets down to it, we need bravery. I mean, people, this general, this military leader you just reported on was brave enough to get fired for speaking the truth and speaking against Israel. That's courage. And that's what we need now more than ever. We need courage.
We certainly do.
People who are in positions of power, people who are in the military, people who are in positions of influence within the administration who know the truth need to speak up, and they need to speak up now because the fate of the world could be in balance. If you think that a conflict between the United States and Iran is going to stick to just the United States and Iran, you're wrong. I mean, look at what the Shanghai Cooperation Organization is saying. Look at what's being said by Russia. Look at what's being said by countries all over the world. Iran has massive support right now. Pakistan has nuclear weapons, and they say that they would protect Iran. There are many countries. I mean, support for Iran in the face of this cowardly, brutal, unprovoked attack by Israel is massive.